Hey Shards fans, Kyle here. We just wanted to put a quick preface on this episode. We recognize that this episode does not have the same audio quality that you have come to know and expect from Shards and Shenanigans episodes. We have had some recording errors while we have been recording a couple of episodes this one, and I believe at least one or two more episodes following this. So unfortunately, you're not going to hear the crispiness that you've come to expect. However, we have implemented some changes into how we record to hopefully ensure that something like this doesn't happen again. So while not as crispy as we would like, the episode is still recorded in its entirety, just a little more muffled and not as crisp. So again, apologies for that, but we do hope that you enjoy the episode. And of course, as always, thank you for listening.
Welcome to Shards and Shenanigans. I'm your host, Christopher Beep, and we got Kyle here. Excited to dive into the next chapter. Chapter 11?
Chapter 11.
All right. Well,
yeah, we're going to
jump
right into it.
I'm ready for a snack. I don't know about you.
I am ready for a snack, and we get... I think this is a pretty fun snack. So right off the way, we get a new name, Rashek.
Mm-hmm.
And basically that this person is part of a growing faction in Terrace culture, and that a large number of the youths in Terrace think that their unusual powers should be used more for more than just, basically... it says fieldwork, husbandry, and stone carving, and that these specific group, they're rowdy and violent, and far different from the quiet, discerning Terrace philosophers, and that they'll have to be watched carefully, and they could be very dangerous if given the opportunity and the motivation. So I instantly jumped into thinking about Ogier from the Wheel of Time.
Oh, the Ogier. Oh, yeah. Totally.
Ogier. Is it Ogier or Ogier?
Oh, yeah. It's whatever we want it to be. I've always pronounced it Ogier.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about, and I don't think, Wheel of Time, possible spoilers, but I don't really think so. But, the Ogier are these big masons, and they built the great cities, and they are also very philosophical. And while it takes them, obviously, can take them years to come to a decision based off of their philosophy and stuff, it just kind of reminded me of that.
Get some Ogier vibes.
Yeah. I wrote loyal
nice.
next to here, which if you haven't read Wheel of Time, that just sounds like the word loyal, and if you have read the Wheel of Time, then you know that's
might mean something else.
A name.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I'm thinking
tasty snack.
Yeah, it's good, and I'm thinking it's the Lord Ruler. I'm thinking that maybe this group of terracemen who are different than the traditional philosophers maybe have something to do with I would say with Sazed, and I think that's maybe part of his group, and we don't know how old he is. I feel like maybe he is this ancient creature, and that maybe these terracemen live thousands of years or something, and that's why he remembers so many religions and things like that.
Yeah. So it is pretty impressive how many religions he is able to talk about with all the different characters. Yeah, all right. I like it. I like where you're going there. Yeah, and Rashek, Rashek, I think it's a cool introduction to that name and as well, right? I think it is the first time we see it, and so yeah, I think that's good catches there. Tasty snack.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I'll adjust one thing, and then we'll get going.
Nice.
Can we? I popped you out. All right, you're popped.
Yeah, popping.
Yeah. Pop, lock, and dropping. Here we go. Chapter 11. Jumping into our meal here.
Yeah.
So we had left in chapter 10 with
oh, right.
Ham
Cliffhanger.
saying that an incident had occurred, and it was in the lair, Cayman's lair, and that something had happened, and that the ministry had possibly found it. And so we're opening it up, and Kelsier and Vin are in the lair, and along with Sazed, we discover and Doxson. Kelsier's immediately saying, like, Vin, you might not want to see this, because she's standing behind him in the doorway, and she kind of looks at him like, no, of course I'm gonna see this, and Kelsier kind of sighs and lets her in. And so what we see is basically a torture chamber, very gruesome, very bloody, pretty bad scene. So twisted limbs, corpses laying around, not rotting. So the attack hadn't happened that long ago, probably just that morning. But the scent of blood in the air, the scent of misery and terror, as Sanderson puts it. So, and he gets pretty graphic with some stuff as far as people torn apart, people impaled. So it's a bad scene, and Kelsier's looking at Vin.
Yeah.
Super graphic. And Kelsier's kind of looking at Vin and thinking, he's expecting something from her, for lack of better words. And she's kind of looking around, and she doesn't really know what her reaction should be. She's saying that, like, these are the people that technically sheltered her and took her in, but they also beat her and stole from her and mistreated her. So, she is definitely conflicted, and she's thinking back to Reen and how he would have been upset with her for feeling upset. He's kind of not beat, but, try to get this out of her, as far as, when she would get sad or let those emotions show. Even talking about how when, like, they would jump from city to city back when she was a lot younger, and they would leave these people that she'd kind of grown accustomed to, how she would cry, and he would berate her for that. And she's being pretty harsh on herself here and saying that she hasn't really gotten over that weakness. She calls it a weakness. Having normal feelings, connections to people is a weakness. So still getting that sad story from Vin about her upbringing and how emotionally scarred she is. So, but she's thinking that what she's seeing here seems very extreme, right? Even for the ministry, who would even do this? And as she's thinking that, Doxson immediately says Inquisitor, and so that's when Vin starts to realize, oh, okay, this wasn't just ministry goons doing this, that this was some kind of an Inquisitor. And Ham and Breeze, Eden, they're not there. They've all stayed behind, and we learn that it's really just, like I said earlier, Kelsier, Vin, Doxson, and then Sazed. And so this is when Vin is starting to question who this Sazed is, and clearly Kelsier thinks that Sazed can handle himself if he's allowed to come. That this place isn't too dangerous for him, and so she starts to think, like, does he know how to fight? Who is this guy? And Sazed's not really giving much away. He's very smooth. He's walking around. He's very calm. He doesn't appear to be upset by what he's seeing. And so Vin kind of locks that in as, like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And we kind of turn and we see Ulif, who was the last person alive from Vin's previous life that we know of. If Reen's still out there somewhere, then maybe him, but that we know of still alive, especially in this group that she had any kind of tinge of a connection to. And, he's torn apart. Rib cage is torn apart, what looks like with bare hands. And she kind of shivers and she does end up looking away. And, Kelsier's saying this isn't good, that Steel Inquisitors don't really bother with these lower crews. And, basically it wouldn't be an Inquisitor. Maybe, if someone wanted to come down on these people, it would be an obligator that would bring down some of their normal troops. They'd take everybody captive. So that this is unusual for sure. These circumstances are not
a good public execution, like kind of getting into like the state fear aspect of the world building. I like that part.
Oh, for sure.
Had to call it out. It was good world building opportunity.
Yeah, and we'll jump into that here, I think, shortly.
Yeah.
Building off of what you're saying, and a good note here that there are only 20 Steel Inquisitors in the entire Empire, and that 10 of them are like outside of Luthadella anytime, meaning that 10 are inside the city.
Half the total, which is terrifying.
Right.
Yeah, that is that's a great catch. Nice.
It says a lot about how, I think, special or how rare of an ability or maybe an elite this is. And so it does make me feel like that, the Ministry, the Empire are taking people who are either Mistines or Mistborn, most likely Mistine, some kind of, push-pull with steel or iron that can sense that and kind of converting them into this group. Because it's just not, there's so few.
Right.
And, scary for sure. And so Vin's kind of realizing, when she's looking at Ulif and she's seeing this scene, that this Inquisitor still must have her scent. And Kelsier just kind of nods, and Vin's saying that it's her fault, that this is all of her fault. And Kelsier's reassuring her that, no, this was Cayman's fault. He's the one who tried to scam an obligator.
Right. Exactly.
And, Kelsier asks, hey, are you going to be okay? And she says, none of them were my friends. And he's just like, well, that's cold-hearted. And she says, I know. So it really, I think, kind of just secures in the fact that, like, even though she was with these people for, what I think was at least a couple years, and she did have this relationship with some of them, that she really doesn't feel attachment. I don't think she necessarily wanted to see them end up like this, but she has done a pretty good job of putting up these barriers in her mind and blocking off her emotions and protecting herself. So very interesting. And so Ham shows up. He is now here, and he walks in and he's saying that the area is secure, that there's no signs of obligators or garrisoners around. And Kelsier's saying that that's the style, like that they want this to be discovered and that they are going to basically leave the dead here as a sign. Sazed is basically saying a prayer. It's a death chant of the Kazi, which is another, probably based on the past tense that Sazed uses to describe them, was a previous people that had basically some rituals for their dead. And Vin's like, oh, like, this is the one you believe in, since it's the prayer he's using. He's like, no, I believe in them all.
I like this. I like this part a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Beautiful. And that, Vince is saying, well, like, none of these religions contradict each other, and says it's like, well, like they do, they frequently, but he respects the truth behind them all, and he believes the need for each one to be remembered, which we've already heard before. And like, how did he decide on this one? And he just says basically that this one seemed appropriate.
Yeah,
so
good scene.
This super good, super good. And Kelsier and Doxson, they go back to the back room. Vin goes in there too, and they see a single corpse, Mylev, who had taken over as crew leader when Cayman went kaput, and he's basically been tortured. His eyes are gone; they've been gouged out, and it definitely looks like he's been tortured here, a little different from just kind of the brutal killing we saw before. They're kind of wondering based on this, hey, do we need to be moving our base? And Kelsier's kind of, it takes him a while to respond, but he's shaking his head no and saying that when clubs came to this lair, when they had their meetings here, that clubs would have worn a disguise. And that hits his job as a smoker to make sure that nobody finds them, by just asking around on the street, and nobody in the crew could have betrayed them, and that they should still be safe. But no one's speaking the obvious here, which is that the Inquisitor shouldn't have even been able to find this lair either, and so clearly something's up. And so Vin's trying to kind of step closer to. Sorry, here, I'm flipping back. To Kelsier and Doxson. So Vin's trying to step closer to Kelsier and Doxson because they step out to kind of have a private conversation. And this is kind of an interesting thing here, and kind of more of Sazed taking on this mentor role. And he's kind of stops Vin from going out there. As if they wanted us to hear, they would have included us.
It just tells her straight up, come on.
Yeah. And she's not happy about it, but of course, here she goes, starting to use her allomancy, and she's burning some tin, increasing her senses, so she can hear around. And she's listening to Doxson say, "Went to check on him a couple times, like you asked. You'll find him 3 streets west of the Four-Well Crossroads." And, basically, Vin jumps when she hears Kelsier say Ham's name, and it kind of makes her jump. And Sazed looks over, and he's clearly knows what's going on. He's looking at her with a disapproving eye. So, if that goes back to this prophecy and the fact that I should say the snack, that, Sazed has some kind of powers as a terroristman. It's interesting, is he actually sensing anything from her? Can he tell that she's using allomancy or not, or can he just kind of read the signs? Hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
And Vin's having that same thought too, saying he knows something of allomancy, and that he had guessed what she was doing. And so we get a good perspective change here, back to Kelsier now, and clearly they're out of the lair, and perspective change, insert sound effects here.
Perspective change, yes.
Which we gave up on, so that's cool. And
we can just bring it back in. No,
we can just bring it back. There are no rules.
Exactly.
So Kelsier is basically going to find who we determine later here to be Cayman. And so we learned that Mylev did as was asked, and basically, I don't know I can't remember if Kelsier asked for that or if Mylev just suggested it on his own, but basically that they would turn Cayman out onto the streets as a beggar, and that I remember the time reading that, him saying something about how the Lord Ruler especially despised beggars. And so Kelsier's out here walking through the city, and he's in the commercial district where more fortunate Ska and less fortunate noblemen mix in the streets. And he's at the Four Wells Crossroads. It's a massive copper fountain, and it's got the statue depicting a Lord Ruler standing dramatically in a cloak and armor, and a formless representation of the Deepness dead. And so, what is the deepness? We still don't know. Obviously, here it's in a formless representation. So, hard to say exactly what that was. We've heard the deepness before and some snacks, but we're still not getting exactly what this is.
This is one of the first times in the actual non-snack section that we really, I think, use that term.
I think so too.
Yeah, and
I think so too.
Formless. Like, what is? I don't know. What is your mental image of that? Like, I've got my own. I'm just curious. Yeah, like what?
Dude, I don't even know. Like, how do you, if this is an actual statue, how do you? I mean, it's like it'd be like a blob at his feet.
Exactly.
Like a.
Yeah.
That's
like,
what
to
I'm
me,
thinking.
like I think like a blob with like pieces of it that are stretched out, like, really far, so it almost looks spiky, but then it moves into these smooth, parts of it as well, where it's kind of just like a amorphous shape, a blob that can kind of become sharp and soft, and I don't know. That's for me the image I'm seeing. If it was like to be cast in a metal statue, that was like that was my guess.
I don't know. I guess read and find out, right? So
we'll read and find out. That's for sure. I wonder what it looks like.
So Kelsier, he's not seeing Cayman here, and so he ends up walking a few streets over, and to more closer to where Doxson had said he had basically seen, or last seen Cayman, a few streets over, 3 streets over, and there's a smaller crossroads there. It's also got a lot of these beggars around it, which I don't know if I said that about the main one, but this one does too. And Kelsier is studying all the faces, and he'd only seen Cayman briefly, but he thought that he would recognize this guy, but none of these faces were really looking right, and none of the beggars had Cayman's girth, which still would have been noticeable despite weeks of starvation. So really just goes to show what being a beggar does, and how it can affect you. And Kelsier's thinking he's not here, and he's dissatisfied with that because I think he's starting to get worried. Cayman is obviously someone who knew Vin, knew Kelsier, knew that Kelsier had come to the hideout.
Knew a lot.
He knew a lot, and he's missing, and so that's not good. And so, we get the note here that basically Milev had done as.
I think it was Kelsier. Yeah, I think it was Kelsier told him to do that. He was like, make him a beggar.
And Doxson was sent to check that Milev did as Kelsier asked. Right. So some good little notes there as we're trusting people, but we're also checking up on them and kind of in the back. So totally. So Kelsier's kind of sensing something's wrong. There's no beggars near this north corner in the intersection, and he burnt in and immediately smells blood in the air. So he kicks off his shoes, pulls his belt free. He's getting rid of all his metal.
He's getting ready to run.
And he's just letting his garments drop to the cobblestone. Keeps his coin pouch, drops some of the coins into his hand, and then he starts to make his way forward, and he leaves all his garments for the beggars. And that smell of death. The blood's growing stronger as he approaches this essential, it's like an alleyway. Yeah. And he flares his pewter and he ducks inside real quick. And no one's there. No one living's there. But Cayman, the crew leader turned beggar, hung quietly from a rope tied far above. And so...
with a hook rammed through his throat. Oh my God! It was
so he's not just hanging like on a noose.
Brutal.
Yeah, he's literally throated like a fish in a hook.
Yeah, like a fish. Yeah. No, definitely.
So pretty gruesome, and his hands were tied. And his body showed signs of torture, and Kelsier's immediately thinking, this isn't good. And so footsteps are scraping behind him. Kelsier spins. He's flaring steel. He's spraying all these coins out of his hand. He's attacking already.
Yeah.
And who is it? It's Vin.
Aw, Vin.
Yep, she's a wily one. She likes to sneak around and she likes to be involved. Can't leave her back. Not gonna work. So they get into an argument. He's like, "This is going to be dangerous," and but Kelsier kind of calms down. And he's like, "I can't blame her for being curious." As he's calming down, he starts to kind of have this realization that Vin is soothing him, and that's why his anger is actually. His anger's backing off because she's doing a very good job of soothing his emotions. And, she seemed so timid and she seemed so, like this little girl who's trying to make herself kind of invisible in the corner. But she had this glimmer in her eye of determination, and that, she basically he's just wondering again, because we've heard this before, how she's getting so good so quickly. So I have some thoughts about this. I think I meant to bring it up when Kelsier was last talking about Vin and how quickly she was picking up when he was talking to Sazed outside of the kitchen and Lord. Yeah, that was in the
Renew,
like the manor house of Lord Renew. And so when they're talking about her, then I had this thought, and this reminded me of it here, that I feel like obviously if she's picking all this up so quick, like things are meant to be, for whatever reason, like she's not just your average Mistborn, obviously not even just a Mistborn, but not your average Mistborn, and makes me feel like she's going to turn into more of a main protagonist, like basically almost like in Wheel of Time. And again, we'll pop a spoiler warning on this, but I don't think this is a real big spoiler here. How you've got Rand, and he's kind of growing on and taking on these bigger roles, and how he's kind of defined to be like the one, this chosen one,
the one. Exactly.
And so while Kelsier at the beginning of this is described as, the survivor, he's the survivor of the pits of Hatson, and like it makes him sound like he's like this chosen one. And I think we might have heard, and I don't think we have to go back for it, but we might have heard even himself reference to things like that, like of him almost being like how he's going to save these people. And so he's talking very high and mightily, but I have this feeling that it's really going to be Vin, who she's not just going to be this like Minty who plays a big role. Like I think she's really going to grow out of that. And I mean, if she's picking all this up, it was meant to be, right? So anyway, that's where my head's at.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, one of the things that really makes me feel is like, especially with the soothing, specifically, and just kind of like Vin, the Vin that we know, it's very natural of what like Vin would have been trying to do with her luck, when she was using emotional alimency with like no metal whatsoever. She was making an effect, but now that she's got massive amounts, I feel like she is, it's not, because I think everybody has like different strengths is like part of it too, and like not everyone's kind of made the same. And so one of the
if she's born with it and he was only given it, right, like because he wasn't a Mistborn his whole life, something happened to him in the pits.
Well, I guess we don't know. We don't really know if she had it when she was like born or not. We haven't really gotten like a ton of information.
But definitely more natural than some.
It seems like it.
Random happening.
Well, later in life too. I mean, significantly later in life. Like there's the timeline for it is very clear, right? Like she's, I think, still younger. Or she's definitely still younger than when he snapped, right? Because he snapped 8 years ago or whatever it was.
Right.
When he got
sent 3 probably.
3. I think 3 is right. when he was in the pits, and that's like that we know, but we have never heard like anything about like Vin like snapping or needing to snap. So I like to be the devil's advocate there and be like, hey, we don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what
That's
has
true.
been? But I really like what you're thinking and wanted to throw some like other ideas and spins.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to try and like keep it fresh and it's
So
fun.
fresh, so fun.
So fresh and so clean.
So, Kelsier's kind of like, Vin, you don't have to use Allomancy. I'm not going to hurt you. And she's kind of like, no, I didn't mean to. It's just habit. And he kind of forgives her immediately. He's kind of saying, like, no matter what Breeze says, it's bad manners to touch the emotions of your friends.
No matter what Breeze. I love the dig. Breeze there.
Yeah, for sure. Because no one's on his train. Like,
right.
Everyone is like against kind of his philosophy.
Oh, for sure. It was like you suck, but it's kind of like the group's asshole. He's like he's our asshole.
Oh, for sure.
I love 100%. Breeze. Breeze cracks me up. But it's also funny too because like he sent her to learn from Breeze, and he's like, well, just learn from him, but
cool your jets.
Yeah, don't do everything he does. Take what you need.
Take the good things and leave the rest.
It's so good. It's a fun. I don't know. I just see the humanity in it all. It's fun.
Oh, for sure, it's good. And so, Kelsier's saying that it's also that noblemen consider it an insult to use Allomancy in formal settings, and that like these reflexes of hers to just jump into using it are going to get her in trouble. And so,
some strategy.
She's looking up at Cayman, and she's got this grim look of satisfaction on her face.
Yeah. And, well, because they're like, Cayman sucked. Like, he deserved to be made a beggar. And,
for sure.
She's like, you got yours, man. Like,
100%. And Kelsier's thinking that, like, Vin's not weak, and that no matter what, she will have you believe, because she does play the
this
innocent,
ignore me
meek person. And,
right.
Yeah, it's. He knows otherwise, and so
something special about her.
Vin asks about why did they use the hook, and he says it's a ritual killing reserved for the most reprehensible of sinners, people who misuse Allomancy.
What?
And so,
wow,
yeah,
that's
I know.
Brutal.
It's so cool. And so Vin frowns. She's like, Cayman was an Allomancer, and Kelsier's like, no. But he must have admitted to something heinous during his torture.
Yeah.
He must have known what you were then, which, we didn't really know. Like, all we got up to this point was that he thought something was different when she was around, and so he brought her as like this good luck charm. But
lucky charm, exactly.
Yeah, he's insinuating that this is something different entirely, and that Cayman completely knew exactly what she was and was using her. And so, Vin says, well, then the ministry knows that she's a Mistborn. And he's like, well, maybe Cayman knew that. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he just thought you were misting. But
I think it's reasonable, right? Like, she didn't really display a lot of the other stuff. She didn't know about pushing and pulling, or like pewter. Maybe she did it in such a reduced rate that it wasn't noticeable, something like that.
Sure.
I'm hopeful. The ministry is so scary.
Scary, super scary. And so they talk about how only a few obligators saw her, and she was like definitely looked like a ska when they saw her. Now she's looking well dressed and is kind of a noble person, because that's kind of what they're trying to convey. And so he's not worried about them, but Vin asks, well, what about an Inquisitor? And Kelsier doesn't have an answer for her, and he's just like, come on, like, we got it, let's get out of here. And that's the end of that chapter, man. Chapter 11 in the books.
In the book, in the bag. Misty Boyz coming at you.
Misty Boyz coming at you.
Insert rap.
Wrapping it up.
Wrapping it up. So we should probably dive into a recap, or we're going to go right into the next one. What are you feeling?
Well, I mean, we can recap it. I mean, I can sum it up. Obviously, we see that the Steel Ministry, um, these people are on to something, right? Like they've killed um, they've killed the entire crew, Vin's old crew. They've also found Kamen. We're able to find him, which when they torture Milev,
Yeah.
he's obviously giving up.
Yeah.
He's already given up, must have given up, hey, this is Kamen, like this is where we last seen him.
Right.
So then they go to Kamen and torture him very publicly. I mean, in like an alleyway next to all these beggars.
Just
and
heinous, you know what I mean? Absolutely brutal.
And he has clearly given something up because they know that he, basically used someone to use allomancy against like obligators. And so, they use the pretty heinous hook torture method for the hanging, which is only reserved for that. So, they're putting things together, and, it's just what did he give up? How much? And I don't think he's a very, he was physically strong, and he clearly made some.
He was just big, strong against against a little.
And he had to have had some brains, right? Like,
oh sure. Well, we saw it in action. Like, he had some charm. He was trying to work the situation. I think he bit off more than he could chew, but he got up to where he got for a reason as well.
For sure. But he just has no reason to protect Vin. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
So
absolutely not.
I think this is a pretty big warning sign that, the ministry is out for them, and that they know quite a bit. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think the thread of knowledge is so palpable in this chapter, and just being like, the ministry is aware of something, maybe not everything that they're doing, obviously where they are, stuff like that, but they're looking for them, and it's a sign that they want them to know, which sure. I just think is bold, and
100%.
And like, well, right, like it's the final empire, 1,000 years of the Lord Ruler, like, they're not concerned. Like, we got this.
And this isn't their first time probably dealing with.
No, yeah, like, how old can an inquisitor be? Like, questions I have, like, I don't know. And like, yeah, sure. I don't know. I'm not sure. We'll see. We're about to find out. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. Read and find out. Sure. That's the only way. So anyways, yeah, a great chapter. I think like a pretty dark one for Brandon Sanderson in terms of like, this is pretty graphic. I think he's not afraid to get graphic with death. Other stuff he kind of shies away from, which I'm fine with. I have no problems about that. But yeah, he likes to dive in and kind of just set this grim setting, and it's adding this kind of fervor. But all right, well, before we go over to chapter 12, I thought it would be a good time for a cast iron interlude.
Oh no!
Yeah,
what do you got?
Yeah. Well, so I wanted to, raise a glass up here to my uncle-in-law Casey. He supplied this delicious Oban Scotch that we're having tonight for the Misty Boyz. What are you refreshing, your taste with over there?
Oh, well, I've got some aluminium. It's a can, and it's a LaCroix sparkling water beach plum.
I love it. I love the commitment to the metals.
Yep. And you know what? It's naturally essenced.
Oh,
so
naturally, of course.
Naturally.
Yeah. Well, just wanted to give a big shout out to our sponsors. Thanks, Casey. Bleep.
Thanks, Uncle Casey.
Yeah, thanks, Uncle Casey. My Vuyek, and we're going to move on from there. But I thought you could hold the ground here, maybe take a couple callers while I go top off on the...
Top it off, yeah. I can certainly do it.
All right. Well,
I can certainly do it.
I can't wait to hear about it.
All right. Yeah, so, just really, you guys are definitely missing out. Christopher and I were in person last week with Uncle Casey, with some of the other family, and we were going to record, and we just got too busy bogged down with family stuff. I shouldn't say bogged down. That's not the right word. We'll cut that. But we got a little too busy with family stuff, and we didn't have the time to record. But we did get a little behind the scenes tidbit for you. We did get a chance to go over some editing. We did some tutorials and things like that for the editing, and so that was good. And then we also were tootling around trying out some musical numbers here for possible some future intro music, maybe some outro music, maybe just fun little tidbits to throw in when we have those either cast iron interludes or when we have those perspective changes, snacks, changing from the snack to the meal, all these different breaks or things like that. So we're playing around with some different things. Got some fun things cooking for you, and we're just really excited to share those things with you once we're ready to. So we certainly appreciate you listening and making it this far. If you're listening to us talk about chapters 11 and 12, which is, I don't know, probably episode 9 or something of the podcast, you're probably along for the ride. So we truly appreciate you guys, and we've cheers to that. And we got Christopher back. He's tip-top shape, and we're going to jump into chapter 12.
Aye, Captain. Let's get metal.
So, when you're eating Oreos and you polish off a whole sleeve, like one whole row?
Oh, yeah. I know all about it.
Like, that's like, you're eating that snack and it got away from you.
Yeah, we got out of control.
We're going to do it again. We're going to our second row here. It's going to be a rough night.
We're going to be a rough night, dude. Second snack. I love it.
We've got the Isles to the south of the Terrace Hills. And so basically what I think, again, the Lord Ruler is talking about here, he's saying from the Isles in the south to these Terrace Hills, what if they were united as a single government, a single nation? Would we set aside our squabblings and join together this single unified empire of man? And then he kind of this last musing of it could never happen. And that's the snack, man.
Yeah. So, what do you think?
It's definitely. I mean, it's got to be Lord Ruler. I mean, I could definitely be off, and maybe something's going to throw me off. And it I this just popped in my brain. Like, what if this was someone who's trying to unify people for good, but the Lord Ruler was either someone associated or on in that person's side, but then kind of took the power for himself once the good thing happened. Maybe it was going to be good that all of man were going to be good, but then he kind of took it over and subjugated, all these people, the ska, and so it's just kind of interesting. So I don't know, that just popped in my head, or maybe it's just the Lord Ruler outright.
Yeah, maybe. Hard to say and not knowing. We're gonna read to find out. I like it. I like where your head's
We are.
Yeah, it's a good snack. I think it's a really good snack. That big doubt, and just the more world building taking place here, right? Setting some history. I mean, what time period do you think this isn't current, right? Like, I don't get that.
Oh no, I think this is 1,000 years ago when the final empire is coming together, right?
Same. Yeah, I just
So-
wanted to check in where you were feeling. All right. Well, cool. I mean, it wouldn't be a snack if we didn't have a meal to follow it up. So
Yeah, I
think,
mean, when you finish off your second sleeve of Oreos, you're
It's
not
time for
necessarily always
second
ready
dinner.
for dinner.
Second
But
breakfast.
we're going to force feed ourselves here.
Well, what meal is it? Right? It's got to be second breakfast. That's what the
Yeah,
hobbits
second
would
breakfast.
want.
That's true.
We can throw some shout out to the grandpa.
Yeah.
The grandpa out there, the Tolkien, the
Gramps.
Tolkien grandpa.
Gramps.
Yeah, some good hobbits.
So-
We need second breakfast.
Second breakfast. Here we go. So, what time is it? Ball time.
Ball time.
Going to our ball.
Boop.
And boop, ball. And,
Going to the ball. That's right.
And we're not talking. we're not talking about basketball. We're talking about formal balls here. Evening gowns. And,
For formal
no
balls.
women's clothes.
just,
Formal balls.
just in case you were confused.
For the ladies. Gotta clean them up. So it's
Not
been
shaving.
yeah, no, and dressing them up, spritzing them up, and so
okay.
we got Vin. She's in her noble woman's dress, and she's saying that even after half a week of being forced to wear one at Say's suggestion, she still finds it uncomfortable, and so we're kind of going to jump ahead here because she kind of describes the dress and stuff and what she's wearing, and we are getting to like how basically the crew has basically given her all this like this dress, like it's worth like more than 2,000 boxings. It's quite a bit of money, and like she could basically get up and leave with all the jewelry, the dress, everything that she's wearing.
She'd be the richest she'd ever be.
Basically, and she could sell
life.
it and live for decades. She says,
Yeah,
"Could you imagine
decades.
how much money that was to just live for decades?" Like
It's wild.
it's crazy how much.
But it's definitely
how-
it's definitely like Vin living, right? Like to her, like living, right? I think it looks very different than to Breeze, what living looks like. Like what Breeze would constitute as acceptable versus Vin is just like I could survive on this, Like
for sure.
I don't think she sees it in the way of like comfort. It's just purely
Right.
utility,
Sure.
which
yeah.
is like I don't know, just my vibe on Ben
Yeah.
in that approach.
No,
But yeah,
I feel the same way. And so she's kind of wrestling with this idea of like, why won't she leave? Why doesn't she run off with all this stuff? Like that's her whole thing, right? Like she's always been trying to survive. She can survive without all these crazy people, without
trying
doing
to
all
get
this
her
crazy
killed,
stuff.
messing with Inquisitors. Like, what are we doing? The Lord
It's crazy.
Ruler?
And so maybe
Yeah.
is it her promise to Kelsier? She's thinking about that. He had given her the gift of allomancy, and he depends on her.
Right?
Perhaps it's her duty to others.
I wonder.
So it's
Good questions.
it's kind of interesting, and her she's saying that Reen, his musings and training had told her that these men that she's with were fools, but she was tempted and enticed by the possibility. Again, this is not the first time we're hearing this, that Kelsier and the others
We're offering
that basically like what they're offering, and that they're different, and that they're a group whose members actually trusted one another.
Right. I think she wants to believe it's possible. It's like
Yeah.
it's like the shred of the surviving child within Vin, of like I want
This
to
little
believe
spark.
that there can be something good, and because I think it's hard for her to believe that. So,
Oh yeah.
sad
So-
character. God, great. Vin.
This is now we're getting into a question that I have.
Yeah. Let's do
And
it.
so we're jumping through this, like the end of this. She's leaving Mansion Renault, and there's a carriage there. Says it's with her, and it's going to be the first time she's going to make her appearance as a noblewoman. And
Great.
we'll learn here as the perspective, not really a perspective change necessarily, but more like a time jump.
Travels happen. Time warp. Yeah, nice. New sound effects.
So basically, what my question is, she's going to this party, this ball. Reno, and we find out later that it's Lord Venture's. They're going to his house,
the manor,
and it is in Luthadel because we get some like specific reference to Luthadel.
Okay.
But the last time we talked, Mansion Renault was in Felice. And so my question is, do they now have another mansion for Renault?
Oh, I think they have some kind of they have some kind
Luthadel,
of or definitely they're staying in Renault's like. Oh, that's a great part. That's a great point.
Because the last time when they were staying there, it was Felice.
Mm-hmm.
And so we could jump back to that or look it up later or just read and find out. But it's just something I was thinking about, like, okay, if they're leaving the mansion and it was still in Felice, and that's like an hour drive, like where they just sit in this carriage for an hour while they go to this.
I think so, because I went back to the map, one of my maps that I have, and it has Felice on the map just west of Luthadel, and it's actually the closest, like... Yeah,
it's pretty close.
The closest piece on the map, the closest, like, named icon. So I think that is, like, probably they're, like... we're getting a bunch of travel skips here, right? They're definitely in the city in Cayman's Lair, right? Like, no doubt about it. And then they're going back to Felice probably to get ready for the ball.
More training. More training.
Like, who knows how much time has passed since then, but it's time now to go to the ball, so we're going to the city.
Nice. Okay. So the carriage shakes, Vince jumps, and it's basically Kelsier literally flying in and landing on top of the carriage, scaring her.
Love it. How's he flying around out there? Like, this is so cool. Like,
it's super cool.
He shows up. He's like this bigger than life kind of character.
He definitely kind of speaking to that. Kelsier says that he warned Sazed that he'd be dropping by, and Vin's like, well, you didn't tell me. And Kelsier winks, and he's like, I figured I still owed you for surprising me in the alleyway last week. And Vin's just like, how very adult of you.
That's so good. Yeah. Great banter, kind of playful.
Oh, yeah. So much back and forth.
Yeah. Good.
And his response of, I've always been quite confident in my immaturity.
Sassy. So sassy.
Yeah, super sassy. And so they're kind of discussing her abilities this evening and what it's going to be like. At the ball and how is this going to go. Kelsier's talking about how make note of the people that seem to be interested in you, and that those are the people we, if they pay attention to you, they're probably paying attention to Lord Renault, or Lord Renew. And that's like a good reason why, like, there's going to be only one good reason why they're doing that, which is the weapons, like the whole back story of why he's there and what he's into. So, we
digging into the script,
Right. And so, they're talking about the great houses and how there hasn't been a war amongst them for centuries, and that basically Renew's position as this weapons merchant, everyone's gonna be excited about that. And Kelsier's saying we need to replicate this war. And Vin's saying that's going to mean the death of a lot of noblemen. And Kelsier just smiles and he's like, I can live with that. How about you?
That's like his favorite thing. That's what he wants for breakfast.
And Vin, she smiles here despite the tension that she's feeling.
Yeah.
And so it's like, is that a true smile? Is that like she hates the nobleman too? Or is that just like she just putting it on for him and she doesn't necessarily feel the same way? Hard to say.
I think it's hard to say. I think she's also just kind of, to me, it shows this almost, not obedience, but like just an admiration of Kelsier, and her respect for him is so high that she'd be willing to overlook like maybe an irrational decision by him, because I think she has some irrational notions herself of a lot of things, especially like other people and who you can trust and not trust. But mean, not irrational in the sense that it isn't warranted based off of her experience, but more just of like not actually like probably closer to what reality is, like due to just bad luck. And so I just see here that kind of window into her admiring Calcier and like looking up to him and being like, all right, I can overlook the fact that he's like gonna kill a bunch of noble people. Like, if he thinks it's okay, I'm willing to give my morals to whatever he's doing.
That's good stuff.
Good stuff. All right, well, let's jump right back in.
So, Vin's feeling uneasy. She's like, is the Lord Ruler gonna be there? She's being assured that no, he's not. Kelsier saying, don't worry so much. Even if he was there, it's not like he can read minds. Ooh. And Kelsier saying that he's known several Ska who pretended to be noblemen in the Lord Ruler's presence, and that he did it himself several times. And he kind of trails off as he's talking about this, and he glances down at his scar-covered hands. And Vin's like, yeah, boy, he kind of caught you, remember? And Kelsier's like, yeah, he's probably going to do it again.
He'll probably do so again with a wink.
Yeah, just
it's so good.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so, he just kind of is like, we've got this is our goal, to establish you as the Lady Valette Renew.
Yeah, Valette.
Make your appearance, listen to Sazed. When you guys are going to leave, he'll tell you. Vin's like, yep, I'm good. And he says, good girl. And Kelsier jumps back out into the mist. So, and then kind of another fast forward here. Time warp. And so Vin was, she's kind of, taken aback by how massive a building that Keep Venture is. It's huge. I think based on some when Kelsier hit that probably back in chapter 2 or 3.
Wow. Early.
We got some description of the keep and how it was basically one of the largest buildings in Luthadel, and that all directly translates to that family's status and their wealth and their power.
Right. Probably other than the Lord Ruler's palace himself, probably the biggest one.
It's big, yeah. And says it's go inside, don't gawk. Ladies don't
Proper
gawk.
Young ladies don't gawk. She's got a great voice when you listen to it. The narrator for the audio does a fantastic job with Sazed's voice. It's got a distinct touch. It's good.
And so we're moving forward. She's going inside, and she's kind of forcing herself to continue. He says it, introduces her at the door to the attendants. There's aristocrats. They're kind of milling around the foyer, and Finn's kind of frantically thinking what is she doing here? She could challenge the mist and allomancy and thieves and burglars, and but facing these noblemen, this was what truly terrifies her.
Yeah, right.
Says it's just hey, remember your lessons, you're going to be fine. And she has this thought of hide, find a corner, shadows, mists, anything. Right. And so we're seeing her kind of go from shifting from, hiding in corners, hiding in shadows, and then she adds that hide in the mists side of it too.
She's comfortable in the mist now.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Definitely. She feels this connection, I think, to the mists, like Kelsier does. I mean, again, that emulating. Anyways, yeah. Don't want to perseverate, but I feel like it's just hammering that point home pretty well.
So Vin is, she is starting to have these feelings all these people are looking at her, and she's starting to realize that they're not seeing her. She doesn't need to be scared because all they're seeing is her hair and her clothing and her jewelry and this costume, this disguise, this person that she's embodying, the Lady Valette, and that it's not really Vin, and that she's able to play and hide behind this character, and she starts to kind of feel a little more comfortable of it's not Like, they're not looking at me. I don't have to hide myself because I'm already hiding myself. Like, I've already got this protection, this wall up by wearing this disguise, which is what she wants. She wants these walls, and because she's got one already, she's starting to calm down, and she doesn't feel like she has to go hide in the corner, which I think is almost like a kind of a good, in a weird way, like a big step for her.
Yeah,
but
totally. It is a big step for her. I agree.
And so they go into the main, I guess, ballroom, and it's got these massive stone pillars. It's like, it's a big, enormous hall, and she's looking up at this balcony. It's kind of set into the wall, and there's a group of tables up there, and it says it's the dining table of Lord Straff-Venture.
Straff. So we get the name. Dude, nice. I missed that. Oh, man.
Yep.
You picked it up.
Got it highlighted.
Straff-Venture. Indeed. I think that's the first mention. Wow. All right. Cool. Good catch, kid. Nothing slips by you. I love it.
Yeah. I'm trying to be on top of it, man. And so we get this cool description of something called limelights.
Ooh, limelights.
And so, there's these lights outside that are shining in through these basically these stained glass windows, which, if you don't recall, I will remind you, on the cover of my book is a stained glass window being shattered out into a bunch of shards.
Interesting, a bunch of shards. Oh my god!
So
that's great. I love that.
She's like, why are these lights shining inside? Because like the windows are really lit up, and it's saying it's limelights, and that he's not certain of how it works, but they use quicklime stones. Quicklime, one word. Quicklime stones, and that they can be heated to brilliance without melting.
Interesting. Don't you love that? Like, attention to detail there of like, he's trying to tell you about the process of how it's made. And
well, and as quick, like, is that because obviously there's some stuff based in fiction and some based in fact, and so like, is quicklime a real thing? Like, is that, can you heat this? Is this a real rock or substance that you can heat that then glows? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, according to we really like AI here over at Shards and Shenanigans. So according to AI, quicklime is a real thing. And just for everybody who would take that offensively, I'm just kidding. But also, quicklime is a real thing. Calcium oxide, known as quicklime, is a widely used chemical compound. So,
there we go.
It's got nothing to do with AI. It probably existed before that.
All right.
Yeah. CaCO3, just for all those fun people out there that really like that kind of stuff.
Real quick, wanted to do this too. Quick shout out to a listener. Yeah, Cast Iron Interlude shout out.
Oh my god, edition. Shout out edition.
Shout out to Ryan. Mr. Ryan following us, hitting us up with some comments on Facebook, messaging us some good stuff, saying he's enjoying the podcast.
Oh my God, yes, thanks, Ryan.
Calling us out for some Wheel of Time spoilers that we dropped that he wasn't a fan of, and he took his feedback seriously and added some notes. That was good. We appreciate
Sorry about
that.
Ryan.
Big shout out to you.
Thanks,
thanks for being an early listener.
Yeah, I hope he was just like letting us know, because I would be sad if I spoiled it for him.
Yeah, and we're back. Quicklime. So we're back. We're inside the hall here. And so Sazed is saying that he's asked for a solitary table, basically so she can sit alone. It's going to mark her as single, which is what they want. She's going to eat slowly. Once her meal's through, men will come up and ask you to dance. And she immediately freaks out. It's like, you didn't teach me to dance. He's like, there was no time.
No time. There was no time for this. He's like, we got a plan, though.
Yeah. And so, basically, just turn them all down. It's going to be okay.
It's like he's like it's reasonable to turn them all down. Like
for sure.
we've thought this through.
She's new at court. It's her first time here.
She'll be too shy.
She's gonna be shy.
She can play into this whole.
It's all playing into the
Villette.
You got it.
Yeah, we're building Villette.
And so we're starting to notice who's walking around here.
Who's walking around?
A high Praelin walks by her, and she notices the dark robes and the dark tattoos around her eyes and around his eyes, and that it's not the same one that she had met before at the ministry when they went to try to basically, scam them. But there basically are a fair number of our obligators at the party. And so Vin's thinking, like as she's watching them, that there's this division between them. Like there's the party goers, the noble people, mostly a lot of younger people here. And then almost like the obligators as like these chaperones, and like they do talk and mingle a little bit, but they're definitely separate. There's like a divide.
Right.
And she thinks, okay, like the garrison watches the ska, and apparently the obligators are watching the nobility, which is kind of an interesting thing. Like, so, okay, we've got this garrison, this army, these armed soldiers to keep the ska in check. And now we've got these obligators that are going to keep the nobility in check. So just because you're high and mighty, high and tidy, high and tooty, fruit and good, fruit gushers, gushing good, as a nobleman,
good,
then you're still under the thumb of the Lord Ruler, right? Like
1,000 years.
He's still on top. So
1,000 years. He ain't going nowhere.
No.
This ain't Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So there's one person in charge, and he's been doing it for 1,000 years. Like, get used to it.
It's a long time, and he's in charge. And so she could see some of the ones directly across from her, the obligators, and she was saying that they were religious, like many scenes preferred by the aristocracy, and that perhaps it shows devotion or perhaps it was required. She doesn't know. But it was likely something that Villette wouldn't know either. So, like, it's okay that she doesn't know.
Yeah.
But she did recognize some of the scenes. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Maybe this wasn't the obligators. Back up. The windows.
Praelin?
She's looking at the beautiful windows.
Oh, the stained glass, like scenes?
And it's showing the scenes, religious scenes. Yeah, sorry for the error there, folks. And
I think that's all right. Don't apologize.
She does recognize some of the scenes here from some of the teachings that Sazin had performed, and that he seemed to know as much about the Lord Ruler's mythology and his past as some of the other religions.
Yeah, they're talking about the religion of the Lord Ruler, essentially. And,
yes.
He's aware, to say the least.
Oh, for sure. And speaking of that, in the windows, we're seeing another reference here, the deepness.
Oh.
It says black, or in window terms, violet. It was formless again, vengeful, tentacle-like.
Yeah, that's where I was getting at.
These masses creeping across several windows.
I think that's where I got it for sure.
And so she's got this, she's looking up at it. It's brilliantly colored with depictions of the Lord Ruler. And she's kind of transfixed because it's, I'm seeing her sit in this great big hall with all these great big windows and all this lights coming in, and it's shining with all these different colors. And it's just kind of this really intense visual for her, especially for someone who's never been in a fancy place. Like, I mean, she went in the ministry of the canton of
finance.
Finance. So that's probably a big building and fancy, but this is kind of, I feel like, another thing altogether. So she's certainly a little transfixed here.
Absolutely overwhelmed with just sensory overload, right? Like, so much.
Oh, for sure. Well, and it's prompting questions for her. She's thinking, what is this? What is the deepness? Why is it depicted so formlessly?
Yeah. But there's
And,
breadcrumbs.
why does
I
it
feel
not show what it actually was?
right. No, it doesn't. But this time you get the tentacles, right? So I love the breadcrumb approach there in the writing. So just yeah, I'm not. It's because it hasn't been too long, right? We just heard it was formless, and we're tell me more. We're picking up on it, and then he's given the next one right there. So, shout out Brando.
Thanks, Brandog. As she's thinking about this deepness and she's starting to wonder about it, she hadn't really thought about it much, but with Sazed's teachings, her instincts are whispering scam. So I think that's really
scam.
That really made me start to think about why was it formless, and he's telling everybody he saved the world from the deepness, from this thing, and if you can't even describe the thing, you can't describe what the deepness is. You can't show us images. You can't show us paintings. You can't even show us what it looks like on these windows or in these fountains. Maybe it doesn't exist. Maybe you told everybody you saved the world from the deepness, but it just doesn't even exist. And so I think that's kind of what she's feeling here too. And so she's definitely having these doubtful thoughts about the Lord Ruler. And so as she's sitting there, she's admiring the decorations. There's people are dancing. They're moving gracefully, and different people are talking together, different groups, and Vin does notice that a lot of the ladies are moving very freely, and that their dresses are very basically nice, and that they're her dress looks pretty plain in comparison, which I think makes sense as far as her being a more lowly country nobleman, just a distant cousin of Lord Renew.
All the script.
And she's kind of saying all these people seem too perfect and too well manicured, and the basically these noblemen, they look so distinguished, and it's so different from what you would think someone who does horrible acts like enslaving her and her friends would be like. She's just not really putting two and two together. And she has this thought of I wonder if they would take any notice of the outside world. Basically maybe they can't even see beyond that. There's this suffering, and they're just kind of in their own little world of noble people. And they can't really see past anything, and they can't see past her disguise, her dress, and her makeup.
Very superficial, focusing on these evaluated items that are more important than the living conditions of everyone around them, right?
For sure.
What dress are you wearing, and what's your hairstyle look like, stuff like that.
It's just a different world for her. Something that she hasn't been exposed to,
Definitely.
And so we get a young lord here, Lord Ryan Strobe. I'm going to pronounce it Rian based on the spelling, because that just seems fun.
Yeah, go for it.
And he comes up, he asks for her hand to dance, and she places it very appropriately and gracefully denies him. And he respects it and says, "Oh, very well done. Your accent was masterful." So she must have some kind of Western accent that she's putting on from the country. And he says that you will, of course, have to dance with him at the next ball, because she says,
next time,
perhaps next time. Yeah. So she has to think, and she's like, well, hopefully he won't attend the next ball. She doesn't realize that she delayed it,
Yeah, totally.
And so Vin's kind of thinking based on what Sazed says about how the young nobility are fond of their nightly diversions, and that she's they do this every night, and he says nearly, that the balls are a prime reason people even come to Luthadel, and that he's saying that she won't be expected to attend quite as frequently. But they need to get her up to attending 2 or 3 a week, which like wild.
It's wild. Yeah, absolutely.
And she's like, well, Jesus Christ, like I'm going to need some more gowns. And he smiles. He's like, oh, thinking like a noble woman already. Like,
it's so good. Yeah.
Which is like kind of just a dig
at, like,
at ladies and dresses and clothing. So interesting. And so
a new kind of concern for Vin for sure. You know, and definitely not something she would have thought about a year ago.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so Sazed's saying like, hey, you're doing great, like you're doing good, no major mistakes, like none that we wouldn't expect from a new lady at court. And she's like, mistakes? What are you talking about? And he's like, we'll discuss them later. And you know, he says like, you know, like you need to remain at your table and sip wine. Like he's got to go off and eat at the like the servants' quarters so he can start to talk and get some gossip from people and learn just like she needs to learn. And he's saying he's going to return in about an hour, and that she should just sit there, don't drink too much wine, wait for him to return. So she's sitting there and 3 more guys come up to her and she denies them all. So she's got 4 guys that have come and, you know, tried to take her in her hand dancing. And she's kind of looks at the obligators and she's pretty bored here. And she's saying, interestingly, that these obligators seem to serve some kind of function of the party. And that while they're often apart, occasionally they would join in, and every so often a group would pause and seek out an obligator, waving one over with a respectful gesture. So she reached inside, burns some metal, but then hesitates first and burns copper so she can shield herself, and then goes ahead and uses her allomancy to burn tin so she can listen into this group that's, you know, has this obligator there. And everything gets louder. The band gets louder, of course. We know this. But she's hearing this conversation that, swear that I'll share news of my engagement with him before anyone else, one of the people said. And Vin's looking over. It's one of the noblemen at the table next to her saying this. And the obligator says, very well, I witness and record this. So this is going back way back to the prologue.
Yes.
So at Tresting's Manor, we had learned, I want to say it was at the Manor, that we had learned a little bit about obligators and that they have to witness agreements between noblemen.
100%.
So we're kind of seeing that firsthand here. Great
catch. Good call.
So, you know, they kind of finish their conversation and head off, and she gets bored again, but she starts to realize she does recognize someone across the room, one of the obligators, and it's not the one who had taken the money earlier. And that's another interesting thing. When this obligator witnessed that agreement about, you know, sharing the news of an engagement before anyone else, after so, he handed him what sounded like coins based on the clinking. And so not only do they have to see this, they're either getting A, paid, or B, tips for doing so. So kind of weird. But weird. The guy, this obligator, he walks over to the other side of the room to another obligator that Vin recognizes. And she thought maybe the familiarity had come from her visit at the Canton of Finance. And then she felt a stab of panic, but she realizes, no, it's not the same guy. He was, and then, bum, 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 my father. She realized that with stupefaction.
Indeed.
So, Reen had pointed him out to her once years ago when they had first come to, not years ago, a year ago when they had first come to Luthadel. He was inspecting the local workers at a forge, and Reen had taken Vin, sneaking her in, saying that like she needed to at least see her father once, but she didn't understand why, and she had memorized his face. So pretty, I think, big reveal here that he's still around. He's still in town, still obligating. And so she finally turns her attention away, and kind of calms down a little bit, and she's looking around, looking at this balcony across the way, and she's thinking how, that would give me a good view of the banners and the windows, which I kind of would like to see a little more. Well, Sazin told me to stay here, but let's just not listen to anything that these people who are trying to protect me say. Let's just go. And so she waves over a serving boy and says, he approached with alacrity.
Like very quickly, like snappy.
It's just, again, the word choices here. Love it.
I love it. Alacrity is a great word.
She's saying, how do I get up there? And he tells her. And so she decides, hey, I'm gonna do it. So she gets up and she's walking up this stairwell to this balcony, and she's getting tired, but she uses some pewter to make the climb effortless. So she's not sweating, and she doesn't want to ruin her makeup, which is very girly of her, which is, I feel like, a change.
Totally.
And the stone tiles of the floor below formed a pattern she hadn't noticed, a kind of free-form curving of gray upon white. And she has the thought, mists. And so this made me instantly think that, okay, Lord Venture is very powerful. He either has Mistborn working for him, but more likely, if this family is designing their castle, their keep, to have this inlay of mist, and that's what they are showing off, and something that they would feel comfortable with enough to put in their home, that maybe the family are either Mistings or most likely Mistborn. And so either Lord Venture himself or someone that we're going to be introduced to here pretty shortly. So just some thoughts. So
some thoughts. Love it.
So she's standing up on the balcony now by this kind of pillar, and she's looking out, and she hears someone behind her that made her jump, which I think is another good, interesting thing here, because I don't know if she still is, burning tin for her senses or not, but this guy basically was able to sneak up on her, which is unusual for her even before she was an Allomancer. And, so I think that kind of says a lot about maybe what his abilities are, but we'll see. And so this boy, he's got a book, books in his coat, and it wasn't the finest suit, and his vest wasn't the brightest. Everything kind of fit. He's basically disheveled. He uses that word, and he's got a cup of wine. He says, that's the problem with going to refill your cup of wine. The problem is you turn to find that your favorite spot's been stolen by a pretty girl.
Ooh.
And that, basically he likes to stand there because it's got good reading light, which makes you wonder, why is this guy reading at a party?
Yeah.
And the description of the worn out suit jacket that's got these big, basically these marks from where this guy's been carrying books, just made me again think of Loyal. I know that was last chapter I brought that up, but that was good memories.
These studious spokes.
And so basically he steps up and he just starts reading his book, and Vin's like, well, isn't he going to pay attention to me at all? And she's kind of surprised that she would even feel that way. And then she's like, well, maybe I should have worn a fancier dress. So she's starting to have these feelings of she wants to be noticed. She went from never being noticed, hiding in a corner, to, I can hide behind this noble person outfit, costume, disguise, to, I want people to look at me. Right. I want this boy to look at me.
Everybody else has been looking, why is this guy not? People were looking at her clothes and kind of seeing through her, not really seeing Vin, but this guy doesn't even bother to look. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. And it's just a really great, I feel like, exchange here of like they're kind of quipping back at each other, and do you always read at balls? Well, whenever I can. And well, why attend if you're not even going to socialize? And he's like, well, you're up here too. She's like, well, I wanted to see the hall. And then he's like, oh, why? Here's something he noticed. Why did you refuse all 3 men who asked you to dance?
Yeah,
and
so
she comes back.
Oh
no, 3. There were 4.
Yeah,
and it's like just like going back and forth and kind of pecking at each other. And she's like, oh, I don't dance very well. And he's saying, you're a lot less timid than you look. And so he has been eyeing her, and he's really been picking up on her at this ball. I mean, I think a lot of people have been looking at her, right? That's kind of the whole point of this. She's the new one. She's the new youngin at the balls. But this guy who's supposedly just reading his book up on the balcony, is clearly picking up a lot.
Yeah, not going to pick up all that while you're reading a book, right? Like,
yeah. Well, and she jumps in and says, timid, I'm not the one staring at this book when there's a young lady standing by him, never having properly introduced himself. And so, like, she just jumps in so hard into, like, being like, it just is very surprising.
Yeah, it's great.
And he's saying, like, you sound like my father, better looking, but just as grumpy. I was like, very well. Let me be a gentleman then. And he bows to her.
Who is this guy? Who is he?
And he says, I am Lord Elland.
One name, like Cher.
And so it's very like Cher. And, so Vin folds her arms and she's like, Elland, family name or given name? She's not sure. Should she care? He just wants his spot back. But did he know that I'd refuse? Like he did know I refused dancing partners. Somehow she had a suspicion that Kelsey would want to hear about this conversation. And she had this desire to shrug this man away, as she didn't have the same desire to like kind of throw him away. And she like felt annoyed again that he's reading his book. And so she interrupts him again. It's like, you still haven't told me why you want to read. He's like, well, I'm not the best dancer. Just like she had said that. And he said, once you attend 500 or 600 of these balls, they start to feel a bit repetitive, which is just bored. Like wild. That is so many balls to go to. Like,
absolutely. Years and years worth, right? Like it has to be if it's 3 times a week, like it's years and years worth of balls he's been going to.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's just the gap between the ska experience and these people that are going to balls 500 times in their life. It's like big gap.
So moving on, we'll get through the rest of this quickly because we're already an hour and a half in.
Well, it's double.
Yeah, it's a double one. And so, he says once you attend like a lot of these, you start to feel it's a bit repetitive. And she continues to ask him questions. And he's like, you're not going to let me get back to my book. And she says, I'm not going to intend to, or I wasn't intending to. And he's like, well, then let's go dance instead. And she freezes. She's like, and he's kind of smiling at her nonchalantly.
Call her
and
out.
She's like, Lord, he's either incredibly smooth or socially incompetent.
That's good.
And so she asks, what are you reading? And he says it's Dilicenti, Trials of Monument. And he's like, have you heard of it? And he's like, well, not many have. And he's, how's your first experience at court? She says it's overwhelming. And he says, say what you will about House Venture, they know how to throw a party. And so she kind of nods and she's like, so you don't like House Venture then? She's thinking, maybe this is a rival or something. And he's like, not particularly, no. They're an ostentatious lot, even for high nobility. They can't just have a party. They have to throw the best party. Never mind that they run their servants ragged, setting it up, then beat the poor things in retribution when the hall isn't perfectly clean the next morning. And Finn cocks her head and says, not words that she'd expect to hear from someone that's noble. And he points out that her terraceman's looking for her, and she kind of looks over and kind of panics. And is like, oh, I've got to go. And she kind of runs down, towards the stairwell, and he's like, oh, well, back to reading it is. And he kind of gives her a half farewell wave, um, and he's back to reading his book. And so she runs down and says it's there, and he's like, I'm sorry. And he's like, don't apologize. Like, it was probably good. Moving about is a good idea. Would have suggested it if you weren't so nervous. And she kind of nods, and he's like, what were you doing up there? And she's like, I wanted to get a better look. But I ended up talking to someone who seemed interested in me at first, but I don't think he ever intended to pay me much attention. And Kelsey's like, well, who is it? And she said,
says it, yeah.
The man in the corner on the balcony there, and one of Lord Venture's friends, and Venfro's, is one of his friends named Elend, and says it pales, and says, you were chatting with Lord Elend Venture? And, she's like, yeah. And he's like, did he ask you to dance? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, oh dear, so much for controlled anonymity. And she's like, Venture, like keep Venture, and says it's like, yeah, like heir to the house title. Yeah. And,
shit.
And she says he was a bit annoying, but in a pleasant sort of way. She's so into this guy. And
she likes him.
Oh yeah. And so she they're basically not running out, but like it's time to go. Like we need to get back and tell Kelsey what's going on. Right. And so as they're leaving, she burns some tin and she squints against the light to look at the balcony above. And there he was. He's holding the book closed. And she could have sworn that Lord Elend Venture, was looking down at her in her direction. She smiles and then lets Sazin take her out to the carriage. And that's the end of chapter 12.
Beautiful. Great ending. Well,
so a couple things real quick that I want to get in before I forget. So it makes me wonder, is he saying these things? Elend. Does he actually feel that way about his family? Does he feel like is he a dissenter of the family? He doesn't like the way, or was he just being, was he playing the aloof card as was it a front? And so I don't know. Yeah.
Right. But okay, is he doing that and all that? But I think one of the things one of the details I like in it is that he's reading this very obscure book. I wouldn't imagine that you would read it. And usually, dissenters and anything that's kind of counterculture ends up having an attachment to the obscure. And so I just kind of I'm definitely getting that same vibe of is he being legit or not, and can I trust this person? But at the same time, I think there's lots of good signs of Elend, of different pieces of Elend. I'll just put it that way.
For sure. Yeah. And how many books is this? He's a well-read guy.
Right.
He's been to 500 or 600 balls before he started reading.
Yeah.
Has he been to 500 or 600 more where he's been reading a book at all of them?
Yeah, exactly.
So
right.
Lots of books.
Lots of books, probably. The guy likes books, but he's also he's a little all this pretty lady sitting next to me. He's kind of showing some attention to Vin, which I love the juxtaposition of how she enters the ball versus how she leaves. She enters the ball and she thinks that she's going to be a fly on the wall. She's like, I'm going to come in here and no one's going to look at me. They're going to think I'm this little country girl and they're going to forget about me. And then she ends up walking away with, the future of House Venture watching her leave.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, she's noticed right away. She definitely didn't keep the low profile that they were going for.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know if it's intentional, right? Is I feel I'm interested to see what more we learn as we go forward, because it's
for sure.
Yeah, it's a good chapter. It's exciting. It's
a good chapter. We set up, we've got a couple new lords names. The most important is Lord Elend Venture. And
could be the most important.
we've got her father is back basically in the story. We see him around.
Right.
We're seeing the obligators witness witness these agreements.
We hear the one Straff venture, which
yes,
is another one that we hear.
That's true. Venture. And I feel like we've heard Straff before. Maybe we haven't.
Mm-hmm. I think we have.
But is he the one that Trestine was gonna try to get in the good graces with or something?
Absolutely. Yeah. Great callback.
So that's going back to the prologue.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like that right there is the popcorn that was in the prologue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for me, I picked up on it and I was like, I want more popcorn. I'm loving it. And so great attention to detail. I honestly missed the Strat Venture earlier. I mean, I knew we were in House Venture. I know where we are, but great catch, and I just really appreciate that.
Nice.
It's really fun. So really looking forward to chapter 13. We'll like to just thank all of our listeners out there.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for recapping that with us and joining in for our basically my musings and my ideas.
Episode. I mean, it was a mega.
Yeah, this was mega. We're going to be at a minute 40 before we wrap this up. We'll see how much I can cut out. Probably not a lot. I think we've done pretty good.
We'll just let it ride, dude.
Yeah.
Pause
if you're a real fan, you'll hang out.
Yeah, I mean, you just pause it when you're not listening to it anymore. It's like
that's true.
We'll be
take a road trip.
We'll be here. We'll be waiting for you. Thanks for listening this far, moms.
Yeah, thanks, moms. We appreciate two of our best listeners, the moms, and our family. And so thanks for hanging out. Thanks for chapter 11 and chapter 12 recap. Thank you to Christopher, and we appreciate you all, and we hope you have a great day, night, morning, whatever time it is that you're listening to this, and we will be back for some future chapters here of Mistborn. All right.
Do we cut it off now?
Toodaloo.
Toodaloo.